You guys ready for some awesomeness?
Go for it.
Bring it on.
You guys are gonna make me nervous now.
No pressure.
Cool. Well, actually, let me do my desktop so you guys can see actually everything. Alright. So, if you guys wouldn't mind, well, we'll do it like this for now, but if anything, maybe if you hear like dog barking or something, just mute your mic. So, okay. So basically, this is kind of where we're starting off, where it's just a guy. It's got 3 poses. Pose, breakdown, pose. And then I decided to go in and add an extra breakdown, basically, because in my video reference, when I got up, there's kind of this long wait in here. Like a lot happens right here. So I was like, I probably need a breakdown, so I went in and added a second breakdown right there. So key pose, breakdown, breakdown, key pose. And this is what it should look like at the end. Something like this. Just gets up. And it's just a simple, feels natural, feels like he's got some weight he's pushing off the sofa. So, alright. So, here we are in Maya. This is how I usually like to work, with this being the camera and then this being perspective, and my graph editor hovering over here. So, I wish I had 2 screens to move this stuff around, but I just have a laptop, so this is the best. And then I also have all these shelves I've kind of created, like this one selects all, leg, right hand control. I'm a big fan of shelves because you should never really have to click on like 3 spine things if you want to just move the spine. So I have all these different spine features, like spine 1 will just select like the curves of the spine all the way up to the neck and head, and then spine 2 will grab this big one here. So just kind of different things that I might need and run into to manipulate this. So basically when I do blocking to spline, like you'll usually have more poses. Like I'd probably have a pose before this where he leans a little bit back and comes forward as sort of an anticipation of coming forward. But the way, and then you might have over here once he stands up, his hands would swing a little forward and there'd be kind of a little subtle in that. What I like to do is I spline pose, breakdown, pose at a time. So if I have all these extra keys over here in my timeline, right, like I could have more breakdowns and poses and click on something. And stuff like that. I would basically just go into my graph editor and I will grab, so I'll just grab these and I'll do this one, which is like the flat. And you could either do flat or spline. The only reason I like spline a bit more is because I don't like overshoots. Like sometimes if you hit spline, like right here, if you see how the curve just kind of overshot a bit, like these little overshoots, I'd rather just have flat tangents, and then like if you do the spline, you'll get these overshoots and you'll still have to flatten it, and if you do flat, you'll still have to go in here and do the spline. So either way, it's 50-50, whichever way you go. I like the flat because the overshoots, sometimes they're a little more annoying when you have little things slipping and sliding and you're wondering where you're getting that kind of extra movement. So, alright. So we'll turn all these into spline. Just going to delete these, just to be a little cleaner. But I basically move like that, and then what I'll also do is I'll just actually take my timeline and just make it up to the pose. So all I see is pose, breakdown, pose. And this kind of helps me not focus about the rest of the animation. I can just focus here, like this is where my attention's going to go. I'm not going to worry about the rest until I'm done with this. So I highly recommend that, because if you're looking at a whole timeline and you're just working in here, it might get a little too small for you. So I like to go like this, and then just keep moving down my poses and keep sliding down until I make it. And then sometimes I'll even cut out the beginning so I can just focus on smaller chunks. So that's just kind of, Maya setup and all that good stuff. So alright, so first things first, even when I did my poses, I've always got like arcs in mind. So all these breakdowns, if you look right now, I'm selecting the hip controller, kind of buried in there, that cube. And he's already got sort of nice arc going through here. If you could see, the hips are already going in a nice arc. And then if you do the same thing for the torso, I like to track the torso up here on the top of the shoulder. So there's nothing really to select, so you kind of have to do it a bit manually. And then he's got this nice arc going through here as well. So a lot of that stuff has already been thought of. Even the hands have, nice little arcs on them. So this is all the kind of stuff I think in posing where I've already kind of solved a lot of my arc stuff. Like those things aren't like left behind, the backhand, all that good stuff. The nose, you track all those. So that stuff is already kind of already in there, and I like to do it early because it's really only 4 dots right now. 1, 2, 3, 4 dots, rather than like 8 dots and having to move them. And you kind of know what you want for those artists. So alright, so I always start at the hips. And then what I'll usually do is go through these, like, I'll go through my graph editor, like right now, translate X, not much happening there. Translate Y, so let's see, we kind of want something like over here. Don't really want the hips to be moving too much because he's just supposed to be bending forward. So, let's see, we have a little tiny bit of movement. And then I'm basically just going through right now the hips in the graph editor and cleaning up all these curves. Like, he does slide a little bit on translate C. We could push this even more. A big thing I recommend is for people to push these forward so you can see it actually interacting in the viewport. So this will be sliding a little bit, but it's not really too noticeable. And then go through all these. Rotate X is a big one because he's going to be coming forward on the rotate X, and I kind of want that to happen quickly, so I might just kind of kick this up to more of a V shape so that it just starts to lean forward immediately right here instead of flat where it would take it longer. If you look at his back right here, if I hit that, now in this exact frame he's doing this a lot quicker than before. So I'll get those rotates. Rotate Y, he's leaning a little bit to the side. We'll also make those into a V shape so that happens a bit quicker. Basically kick up all these rotates to just go a little quicker. So that's basically what I do with the hips. See? And so far it's looking pretty good. I'm kind of just focused right here on 1 through 10. And then I'll kind of move through, because like right now I just need him to do this part right here where he leans forward pretty good, and then I'll have him go through here. But I'm still cleaning up the graph editor on all of them. If I see any wonky spines and stuff like that, I'll clean it up. And then keep going through the torso basically. So let's see, any keys over here? Nope. Any keys here? Yeah, there's our rotate X again. And we kind of want that to kick up so it goes pretty quickly. We'll clean that one up. Rotate Y. We'll also kick this one up so it goes down immediately. Clean this up. Also have that rotate keep going. And then one thing to kind of think of, which kind of came up in this rig, with the Morpheus rig, is you can rotate him with these little controllers in here. And you could also rotate him with these round circles around him. Well, with this top one you can. So I kind of made it a thing to not really set too many keys. There is a few on that rotate X on the end. But I try to keep all my rotates just inside these so that I'm not kind of counter animating. So try to be careful when you're using rigs that can do the same thing. Like it can rotate X here and it could also rotate X here. To not have both try to like only use rotation on one. That way, you know, you're not counter animating. Like maybe this one will go here, and maybe this one in some other pose, I'm posing it out and I'll lift it this way. So now you'd be getting basically counter animation happening. So the less controls you can use, the better, and it'll be a little more organized in your head. Alright, let's keep going through these. So here, it kind of has a little tiny bend to it. Cool. And this is basically what I do. I know it's a lot of graph editor, but it's just kind of a lot of cleanup from when you hit that initial spline button. And this will kind of get rid of a lot of hitches so that when you're watching it, you don't have weird glitches and you're trying to like mash up a bunch of keys in here like this. You know, like you kind of never want to mash up as many keys, because if you use a computer and you like use it to benefit you, you'll get a lot more out of it. And then, so I basically start from the hips and go all the way up the torso. And this is what I meant kind of in my workflow, where I just go through and make sure all these curves look pretty good. Because I don't want any weird stuff when I'm like kind of scrubbing through. And then, so the torso is kind of the biggest part, and then I might decide something like, okay, we'll go through the hands, clean this stuff up. You can either go to the feet or to the hands, whichever one you want. So it's going through here, make sure all this stuff flows through. It's best you don't have weird little overshoots. Sometimes, like, Maya will give you these giant tangents that look kind of like this. You gotta sometimes clean those up so they get back to a little bit more normal. Alright. I'm usually not as picky with the hands. I work a lot with IK hands. So I'm usually not as picky and as clean with my shoulders. But we'll just go through it real quick and see if there's anything in there. Just because shoulders and stuff like that, you're going to have to go in there and polish them a little bit later. But I did think about them when I was doing the poses, so I know they're in relatively decent shape. I just don't want any of these weird glitches. Maybe right here we have this wonky thing. Maybe I can lower this a bit right there. So basically right now, it's just basically cleanup. But we can get to a few things now, like with the feet and stuff. Let's see, they should only have a little movement from back here. So let's say, like, okay. So I want to get, like I'll do probably, so right now I'm just kind of focusing right here 1 through 10. And there's certain things I need to be kind of offset that I'll kind of also do in this first blind pass. So maybe like that foot, I don't want it to all come together. So I might take this foot here, and let's see, like I know it's translating back on the Z, so I can see the blue axis right there. So I'll probably kick that up so that it really, you know, when the shot starts, it really goes there quickly. And then let me move this forward a bit so that, you know, let's actually grab the entire right leg key so we get all those in there. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. Let's see if we can now go in here. Now that I've kind of cleaned it up, now it's time to basically start kind of refining a bit and not having everything go at the same time. Like so I'll usually start with the hips because that's kind of the easiest thing. I'll even say something like, okay, well, he's going here, but feels very linear, so maybe I might want him to drop a little bit before he goes up, kind of like he's digging a little bit into that sofa. So maybe I'll do that. And then I might even go ahead and add a little extra key, so he's got this kind of like little up, it goes up and down into it. So that feels pretty good. And this is kind of the part where you'll see me kind of start paying more attention to kind of little details. Like right now, it looks like when he moves forward, it's like his whole chest and head look like they're going together. So I might maybe try and see if I can rotate this here so it'll feel like there's a little bit more drag, and then I'll go in here. So maybe this needs to be kicked up a bit more. Maybe just a little bit less. Now it feels like kind of like his chest goes, but his head doesn't go at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of just always thinking of, just kind of having these things in the back of your head, like, okay, the hand, and like if the body's moving forward, I don't want it all to move forward like a robot, you know. There's got to be some things that drag behind, so let's try to work that stuff in there. And then the little, with the hips going up and then down. And then, let's see, so then I'll usually just play it a few times just to see how everything's going. But it's more of a scrubbing thing. And then I pretty much know, like, the arcs are probably working pretty good through here. Looks like it goes up. Like, arcs a little bit up, and then comes down. And then it kind of keeps bugging me that like this right hand just feels very robotic right now since we're just working on this little phase. So let's go into this right hand and try to get it to do something a little bit better. So we know it's going right there. Let's have it slide up a bit so that I'm actually going to leave it here because I kind of want it to stay here as he like pushes up. Yeah, right now it's just sliding. I kind of want it to stay there for at least a few frames, so I'll probably just, this controller, this shelf that has the arm that I selected, I just basically copied all those keys in here, and I'll make sure to flatten it out, because if you look at it, when you copy and paste, all this crazy stuff happens, like, what is going on right here? Like, look at this crazy curve, just, the stuff is all over the place, so anytime I copy anything, I make sure to flatten all these so that there's nothing kind of happening there in the middle. But I probably want this to come a little bit sooner, right? Because it's all just kind of happening at the same time. And we probably want this hand to not just only slide, like right in the sofa, like we can do what we did with the hips, with lifting it up a bit. So I might kind of have it lift up, rotate it down so it feels kind of like as a wrist, like if you lift your wrist up, like your fingers kind of drag down a bit, so we kind of want to create that sort of feeling a little bit more. Might even add a little bit of drag in there, twist it so it's dragging. Push that up, and then go in here and make sure, you know, things are going kind of how we want them to. Like if this wrist goes up, let's have it go down really quickly here. Like one of the things with timing is if you have a move, you kind of want to have side A and side B of things. So like if the hand goes up relatively slow, like here it's probably going down pretty slow. When it goes down, you kind of want the opposite action, like fast. So if your character stands up slow, have him sit down quickly. If your character leans to the left slow, have him go fast to the right. If you lift the hand up, have that be fast on the way up and slow on the way down. So, that stuff's looking a bit better. Maybe we'll even say, because, you know, right now the hand and the foot both all kind of go on the same frame. Maybe let's say we'll actually leave the hand just a little frozen right there. Slide this over. So that, you know, kind of on this frame, only kind of the foot and that body are going a little bit. Just kind of break that up a bit more. And it seems like it happens pretty quickly right now. So I might give that a few more frames. So I'm like very big on just, you know, having these big parts, like the whole right arm selected and being able to slide all the keys around like this. And just basically play with my timing. You know, Right now it feels like the hand, when it goes up, just feels like it makes this really big move up. So maybe I'll flatten this one out so that it's a little softer on the way up. You guys see the difference between that? Like, watching these things for the hand, just when it goes up, see how it kind of does this big pop?
Yep.
Like if you watch it, it does a big pop. While if I flatten this out, it actually translates a bit higher and it feels a little more natural. So that's the biggest thing with hands. Like, even if you notice the pose, like, the hands feel very relaxed. They feel relaxed around the edge of the sofa. Here they feel relaxed, you know. Making sure those hands feel relaxed and the arms in general feel relaxed is a huge thing to get those hands to going on. So we have this stuff right here, and kind of have some fingers penetrating, so we'll go in here and maybe we'll push that idea of the fingers pulling a bit more. Let's see. Kind of always, when I like adjust stuff, I'm looking here, I'm looking here, I'm looking at kind of both to make sure that everything's working, and I think I actually might lift that up a bit more. Feels a little more natural. And then I'll go in here and I'll clean up my graph editor. I'll see, okay, well, what's happening here? And then if you kind of notice, like, when the hand, like, let's, right here from translate X, right, which is going left to right, is kind of a big part of this move. It goes from left to right. I'll start adding eases in. Like right here, see how it just freezes? It's arrived at its spot. I'll go in here and add a few little eases like this so it eases in, and I'll just go in here and do it for kind of all of them, really. And sometimes, you know, I'll even kind of do this blindly. Like, I'm usually looking back and forth, and I'll test all this stuff in a sec. But it's like if I see a spot that's totally frozen like that, like, it can't hurt to have a little tiny ease into it. I mean, the difference here is like just almost microscopic, but it'll be one of those things that you sort of feel and your character doesn't die on you. So I'll go in here and now I'll look at it to see kind of what happened. You know, that feels a little bit better. Like, if you look through these frames, you could see a few pixels just kind of barely moving in there. Might even push that a bit more, especially on this translate X, which is the most obvious one. Feel like the hand just kind of like got there, but it also is doing a little bit, it has a little natural like slide in it. Alright, so I think that's working pretty good for now. We'll still have to offset fingers and all that, but I think I'm feeling pretty good about this first few movement right here where he moves forward. You know, this hand is looking pretty good for right now. It's not really doing much, but we can't see it, and there's nothing quite too big bugging me about it. So just play it back and kind of see. I even think this hand actually is still kind of doing a bit too big, so I might stretch this out a bit more, give it a few more frames. And you know, every time I do this, like, I'm very conscious that I've taken the entire right arm and I've moved it. These keys will have different spots, but for the most part, the rest of the body, I know the torso, this hand, this foot, all these will probably lay in the same exact spots. So it's a good thing to know what you're doing and kind of say, okay, I know I moved all the right arm things, and, you know, if all else fails, you know, I could always just go and grab my key pose right here at 10, and then just see where, oh, it's all laid at 10? Okay, so I'm going to delete all this other stuff here, and I'm going to just go back to where I started. Kind of knowing that, like, if you mess something up, you know how to go back and like, resave it. So, alright. So now let's kind of, since this part's working pretty good, you know, we have this foot coming back. Let's kind of worry right here on his, like, up motion, right? Let's check out this translate Y and see if we kind of want to do anything else. You know, to me right now, it kind of looks like he goes up and then he dips a bit too low. Like if you look right here, looks like he dips a bit too low, so I might kind of tone that down a little bit so that it feels a little bit less. Cool. Is everybody following along? Yeah? Or did I lose everybody? Nope, I see head nods. Alright, cool. Oh, we got some chat. All good. Cool. Okay, so, and then I also kind of feel like he's sliding a bit right here, like he's sliding off the sofa, when that sort of wasn't the intention. Like in the video reference, I don't slide. I'm basically, if you look right here, I'm just sort of pivoting, not really sliding. So I'll kind of go in there, maybe address that a bit more. See, this curve right here to its next point is a bit high, so let's tone this down a bit so he doesn't feel like he's sliding. I want a little tiny thing, but one of those things where you can feel more than you can see. And we want to make sure that, you know, our curve isn't going under this, because if it goes under, that means it's going reverse. It'll be sliding back. And we don't want that. The big thing is these curves have to, like, you know, right there, even this little tiny jagged thing, I don't know if you guys can see too well, but it's like that, and then it goes a little bit down. And, you know, this little bit down might seem microscopic, but kind of don't want him doing anything that doesn't make sense. So I'll try to keep that straight as possible, and then let's see. That feels a bit better. And then let's see what happens. And then a lot of times I'll experiment with this stuff. Like, let's see what happens if once he gets here, we kick this to be, like, I'll break these tangents and then see if he goes up a little bit faster. Kind of see what we get out of that. And just kind of feel it out. Like, so that feels pretty good, but I think I might make a decision to keep this flat. Just because when anything that's like moving up has a lot of gravity to deal with. So the more he spends kind of right here in these frames, the heavier he's going to feel and the more natural it'll feel. If he flies through this part, then it'll feel like he's a little weightless. Because he's got all his body and his bones, and like this guy probably weighs about 160, 70 pounds, and he's got to like basically go through air resistance and gravity to stand himself up. So we kind of want to. So it's feeling pretty good, and then usually I'll do a lot of play blast. Right now this is playing back pretty quickly, but I'll play blast. And a big thing I notice when I play blast is I'm watching stuff that's in super slow motion. So if there's any pops, I'll be able to see them. You know, like these arms are like basically the IK is popping in. Those are pretty obvious, but sometimes some pops are a little less obvious, and in slow motion they become a little more obvious. That's feeling pretty good. It looks like his head kind of does this like fast recoil thing at the beginning. It goes down too much. I think it feels that way. Always ask yourself, it feels like he's kind of doing that, and don't be afraid to go in there and say, hey, let me tone down this rotate X right here. Because it looks like he's just kind of rotating his head a bit too much, you know. And I always work with the neck and the head as kind of one unit together. That way your head isn't rotating and your neck is totally stiff. And once again, try not to counter-rotate, counter-animate each other. Like right now, nothing's happening in the head for the top part, so I know I can work with this, and it should be fine. Now let's see if, you know, we might tone this down a bit, clean it up, so that kind of feeling of, now it feels like everything's kind of moving together again, so a lot of give and take and making sure that, you know, what you kind of, like, okay, well, I want him to feel like everything's not moving together at the same frame, like, you know, the head's got a little drag behind, but then I also don't want him to look like he's smashing his head forward. You know, I might also go into these here and say, well, maybe I want these to do a little bit less. And right here, like, I kind of noticed, like, well, I could rotate him here, or I could rotate him back to have him straighten up, but we kind of don't want him to rotate